Well, good afternoon. Well, I'm not even in the shot. There we go. Good afternoon. I am not Pastor Mallory, as you can see. I am Pastor Sean, her husband, and we have hijacked her spot this afternoon to be able to do some more Divine Encounters Botswana so you can hear from more of the team. Elder Ken is with us, and then Ava is back with us because Jeremy wasn't able to make it. He had a situation at work that he got stuck. So I forced Ava to come back and co-host with me this time with Elder Ken. And so we'll see how it goes. Y'all just pray for her. She was super nervous and like spilling her water. She like punched my coffee this morning.
I didn't punch it. I still don't know how that happened.
She was very nice and bought me a coffee and brought it to me, but then she burned herself, number one.
I burned my wrist so bad. It hurt. And
then handed it to me, and it was just like pouring out of the cup, so I had to go get another cup. I don't know what she did.
Look, I was just trying to lock my car, and then it got all over me. I just don't know what happened.
But we're thankful, as in we, I mean me, myself, and I, that you brought me a coffee. And then she went and got me a tea, so I'm very appreciative. We need to have you around more often. You sure you want to go to Tulsa?
I'm positive.
I mean, it's not too late to change your mind.
It kind of is.
Oh, okay.
At this point, yeah.
All right, so let's see who else is watching. Make sure y'all share it and like it. I know some people didn't know that we were coming on this afternoon. So the more you share it and like it, we'll get into that, Hector. We'll get into that. The more you share it and like it, the more people are going to see. So just make sure you share it and like it. Javi, Rosa, Miss Dawn, Elder Barbara, you're right there. Who was that top one? Sherwin Williams, the painter. Mr. Clifton, Rosa, Hector. Can Ava share why they brought the drug dogs out? Yeah, we can get to that point.
Oh,
I think
right now. Okay.
No,
Okay,
no,
like,
you've already
please
had your
don't-
limelight.
please don't
Let's
say
let
that.
Elder Ken have some time, okay? Maybe this was a bad choice. If I knew you were going to hijack the whole thing, I wouldn't have brought you back on.
Never mind.
So, Elder Ken, you've kind of watched some of the ones we've done before, and we'll kind of just start with give us your thoughts, your opinions, your experiences on just the trip itself outside of the ministry aspects of camp life, setting up, tearing down tents, which you became the expert at, and then how some of the nights were really cold, some of the nights felt great, your opinions on food, maybe some of the different things you tried, and then obviously, because we've talked about it so much, we'll get into your relationship that you formed with Pastor Jerry, but talk about the different campsites, the different towns, the different cities, the cultures, but don't get into the ministry part yet.
Wow, that's a lot to remember.
We'll help you. We'll help you.
Good. Overall, this was a very, very good trip. It was a learning experience for me in a lot of ways because I would compare it with the other ones I've gone on, which has been about 19 other trips over the years. And so our routine in Africa, it was the winter season, so it got light in the morning at 6:30 and dark at night at 6:30. And when you woke up, it was in the low 40-degree range, and in a tent, you don't have a lot of protection from the cold, so it was just you in the sleeping bag. And some of the mornings it was pretty cold, and I learned to slide the shirt I was going to wear that day inside the bag ahead of time, so I'd at least have a warm shirt to put on.
Smart.
And then I'd put the jacket on top, and then I would stay that way a while until I warmed up a little, and then I'd get out of the bag and go about my day after I put on the rest of my clothes.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people were confused by a lot of the pictures because they'd see us in like big heavy jackets and toboggans and different beanies, and then they'd see us in like shorts and short sleeve T-shirts. So
Yes.
I'm glad you added some context to that because a lot of the pictures probably didn't make sense in that form.
Yes, it was very cold in the mornings, and it would warm up to 65, 75 in the afternoon. So we had to put a lot of clothes on in the morning, and as soon as the sun went down, it went down into the 50s really quick. So you learn to have the jacket with you if you're out on safari and the sun was going to go down when you're out there. So, and and if you forgot, you wouldn't forget the second time.
Yeah, for sure. I think some of the days, if I remember right, got up to like 86, 87 on a couple of the days.
I think so. When I looked, it was always less than that, but
That day in Kasane was hot.
yes, that was very hot. I was just glad it didn't rain at all. I looked at,
Yeah.
and that was good because we had enough other stuff to deal with. But yeah, that was a little bit of a challenge. I'm used to being outdoors like that in the elements, so that helped me. But I know some of the other ones, it was a rude awakening in the mornings and in the evenings as well. So the food I thought was really good. I wasn't concerned about that at all. Usually on a missions trip, they want you to come back, so they feed you well, and it's a good incentive to come back at a later date. So I probably gained 5 pounds on.
What was some of your favorite things to eat or drink over there?
I like to eat the natural stuff, so the fact that the food there has less additives in it was a big bonus for me. I liked Matt's meal probably the best because it seemed almost gourmet.
Yeah.
All the other meals were wonderful and great for camp life, but his seemed like it went.
Well, he was a professional chef for like 10 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, well that helps. That helps a lot. And he only had to do it once, and anyway, he did a great job.
It was excellent.
It's good to know that he was a chef. That helps. But yes, the food was wonderful. What was the next?
Just like about the towns, the culture, the different I'm trying my best to get people to understand how this was, because we were moving so much, having to go to different grocery stores, and I call it a mall, and y'all think it's like this big thing where there's like Abercrombie and Louis, but it's literally a shopping center, like a strip mall, basically,
Yes.
with maybe 1 or 2 grocery stores in the bigger ones, a couple little fast food places, and then maybe like a Pep, which is like I don't even know how you describe a Pep compared to anything we have. It's like a CVS and a Dillard's had a baby.
Okay. I would just say the malls were smaller, like the old malls here that get converted after everybody leaves, and then it's what's left. But the grocery store is like the main main
anchor,
store.
Yeah.
And then they have clothing store maybe or something else. So yeah, the stores were very modern, and they had everything you needed, and so that was encouraging and good. And I was able to do some shopping for Pastor Jerry. I found out early on that he was a new grandfather of a grandson that he hadn't seen yet, only 2 weeks old, and then he had a 1-year-old granddaughter also. So when I was up at night, the first few nights I hardly slept at all. It was hard to acclimate the 7 hours and just the long flight and all everything else.
The noises, the cold, the tent.
Yeah, everything. It was hard for me to relax and to actually sleep good for about the first 5 nights. So I would be up praying, and the Lord give me an idea of just to bless him, so that when he was able to see the grandchild, he was able to take something for them. So while they were getting the groceries for the group, I decided it would be okay for us to go into the clothing store, but I told one of the security guys first, so they wouldn't be wondering where I wandered off to. But anyway, I had him pick out a few outfits, and that was the beginning of our relationship.
What was that in Mound already? Was that?
It was probably at the second mall where we stopped, because I wouldn't have thought of it at the first one, and I was just hoping then that we had another opportunity with the store. So, and as it turned out, we had several more opportunities, and he was always appreciative. One of the things he told me on the trip was that every day was like a manna from heaven day for him.
Mm-hmm.
He said he hadn't ever been on a airplane before or in a hotel that nice. Hadn't been in a boat before, and he hadn't been out of the country of Zambia before. So he was doing a lot of firsts, and he was out of his comfort zone for sure. And a lot of us were as well, but I felt like that I could help him to feel more at home just by being his friend, and so he wouldn't feel alone in the group.
Yeah, so to give some context to what Elder Ken's saying is, Pastor Jerry, and just in case there's anyone new watching, I met him, what year would that have been? 2011, I believe. Led him to the Lord. I'm not going to get fully into his testimony, but he comes from a village that's literally dirt floors, mud walls, thatch roof house, no electricity. If they want to charge their phone, charge a lamp, you have a solar panel with a car battery and you charge off of that. And no running water. He told us he had to walk 4 Ks to get water. And sometimes they just got water out of the river, which is not the cleanest solution to do. So that's where he comes from. And so to be able to go and do any of the stuff we were doing, and that's what I was telling Elder Barbara before we got on, it was like, it was just fun to watch y'all. To watch how you and Pastor Jerry interacted, to know that, like, because yes, I wanted Pastor Jerry there, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to take care of him the whole time and spend all the time with him. So to watch you and him was just a fulfillment to my heart, if I can say it that way, because it was like I knew he was taken care of. I knew I didn't have to worry about anything with him. I knew he was going to be comfortable. And yeah, there was that first day or two that took him adjusting to all the Americans and all that. But then by the end of the trip, it was just like basically like you're on a trip with your uncle, right, Ava?
Yeah,
I mean, like share your really perspective with Pastor Jerry and watching him and Elder Ken.
Yeah, I mean, me and Pastor Carl would like talk about it. Like, I feel like pretty much like every day we would just be like, it's so cool that like Elder Ken and Pastor Jerry are like such good friends now, and it was just like, it was truly like just so amazing to see like how close y'all got and everything. And he was just like, I don't know, Pastor Jerry just like made that trip, cause like how grateful he was, how loving he was. It was just like, I don't know, like you and him were just like perfect to be like best friends.
And just what they're both saying, I remember Pastor Lasejo came up to me the first day and was like, Pastor Sean, did you see what Pastor Jerry brought? All he brought was like a half full backpack. That's all he has. I said, it'll be fine. That's kind of what I said, because I already knew I was giving him stuff. Yeah. I already knew that you and I had talked about taking care of him. And I just knew our people, and I knew like our heart was, he's going to be taken care of. Yeah. And so just to watch him every day, like so appreciative of everything. And I remember those 2 or 3 times around the campfire. And if you want to get anything into campfire and testimonies and some things you shared or Pastor Jerry shared, go for it. But just to watch him, how thankful he was around the campfire, and like that, I can't even make that noise. I made it on the trip once, but there was this specific noise he made whenever he was just overwhelmed. Yes. That was like, it just, I don't know how to explain it. It just hit you like in your spirit, like to where it affected your mental capacity, your emotional capacity, your spiritual capacity, your physical body capacity. It affected everything to where just to realize this man is so grateful for this experience and he even said it to me multiple times, and he probably said it to you. This trip won't only change my life and my family's life, but it'll affect the whole village of Nsongwe, because I'm going to go tell them about how good God is.
Yes. Wow. Yes, it was. I was glad he was there. He helped a lot with the interpretation. Like I said before, our American English needed to be interpreted into African English a lot of times, because we would speak too fast or wouldn't enunciate very well. And it was good for him to be able to help bridge the gap in those instances.
Some of us needed translators for Jeff.
But anyway, he was real good at that, and he knew the culture there better than we did, even though it wasn't his own home area. It was more so his than ours for sure. And it was always good to hear him share at the campfires, and a lot of times he would get overwhelmed and just he couldn't say anything, and sometimes he'd just leave the group for a while and compose himself. And in the mornings, I noticed he would be off by the river by himself doing his devotions, and that was always nice to see. It was, I was glad he was there because I was feeling a little out of place, maybe like I didn't know who I was going to connect to as one of the older ones in the group. And so it was good for me to have somebody to connect to in that sense. And I'm kind of used to doing that on the other missions trips, so it seemed a little natural in that respect. But
From that aspect, I mean, y'all jump in and give your opinions on it. I loved watching that about the team is, yeah, everyone connected with their one or two people, but then also the team, there was no disconnection between anyone in the team. Like there was no, a lot of times, especially on a larger trip like this, you can have like little cliques, and there was none of that. Like everyone, like even at night, people would sit by different people almost every night. They would hang out with different people, minister with different people. So that was fun to watch as well, because that's rare.
Yeah, I like that as well. I got to know almost everybody on the team in a special way that I wouldn't have here at church. And I remember one night especially, I was sharing with Becca, or she and I were sharing back and forth, and then the next day there was a reason why we shared what we did. And anyway, that was it was good to know that we were on track in the spirit the night before when something happened the next day. So and I liked how everybody worked together as well. A lot of them I felt really eager and ready and zealous, and I felt a little like I wasn't that prepared. A lot of them were out of the Bible school, so they were all ready to go, like they couldn't wait, and that has usually not been my personality or anyway, so it was good to see that.
Yeah, but you got after it.
I was gonna say, Pat, like whenever we would go like house to house, like you would go and like just see people on the street. Like I remember one time we were walking just like around, like whenever we did like the 3 parts where we had one each a block, and there was like this group of like schoolboys that were just like walking, and you were like, here, let's go talk to them, and then like you led like 3 boys to the Lord like right then and there. And that was really cool to see, like to be with like Elder Ken at that time, and like to get to like minister with people with him. That was really cool.
Well, that was a first for me with those 2 guys. I think Pastor Carl spurred me on because I saw her kind of, she explained this morning that she felt like it went into high gear for her, or I could see that happening. And so that encouraged me to be more bold. And that was our last big outing. So that, I think by then I was a little more acclimated to everything, and I did feel a little more bold, and it did go better.
Because there was also that one stop where we just Paul pulled over to the side of the road, and like they were at the water spot, and like most of the team stayed on what would be the left side of the vehicles, but you and Pastor Jerry and I think Victoria and maybe a couple others went to the other side, and like I'm sitting here as the leader, I'm trying to keep track of everyone on both sides of the road, and it's a major road with cars going by and the people going into different. And I just see you and Pastor Jerry like going for it, and like you can tell y'all are praying for healing because you're making this lady like bend over and walk and do different things. So it was fun to watch from a distance as well.
On that occasion, I was following Pastor Jerry. He was the one who headed across, and he was the one who led that whole thing. But there was a lady there who was holding the baby, holding the baby girl that was about the same age as his granddaughter. And that was the one whose mom died when she was born.
Yeah, go ahead and tell that testimony.
And didn't have a dad. So as he was hearing her story, he wanted to go back to the truck and get the outfit that he had just got for his granddaughter and to give it to her. So he planted a big seed into that baby's life, And the Lord honored that because at the end,
Yeah, go ahead and talk about all that. Go
At
ahead and
the-
talk about all of it.
at the end, we were encouraged to leave behind whatever we wanted to for him or his village. And so it ended up Pastor Sean had to order a taxi for him to get home and to haul everything home in.
Like a van,
Yeah.
like a big van.
It was loaded.
It was loaded and a lot, so.
You have a picture? Send it to Jason and
Yes,
see if you
he
can
got
post it real quick.
Lots of blankets, sleeping bags, shoes, clothes, socks. stuff for
Headlamps,
him.
water filters,
Yeah, the water
soccer
filter
balls.
was a great idea,
Not
Hector.
everything. Yeah, I like what touched me whenever I like got to know Pastor Jerry was the fact that he told me that he had 5 kids and 4 of those kids are girls and he had 4
Yes.
daughters, and he said that one of them was around my age, and so like by that night whenever like Pastor Sean had told us like encouraged us to like give to him whatever we wanted, like I ended up giving him like just so much clothes because like I can get like new things like this, like if he has like girls in his village that can use this like more than I do, then like I mean by all means. And I remember like I texted my dad and I was like, hey, by the way, a lot of stuff that I brought I'm not coming back with. And he was like, okay. And then I had to like explain to him like the story, but it was just like how could I not? And like I think all of us like on that trip felt that for Pastor Jerry was like how can we
Yes.
not give to him?
Yeah, and I know like Elder Ken went and bought him a bunch of groceries. I mean, Elder Ken like took care of him. There were a few times like if we were out to eat, I'd be like, hey, I'm gonna make sure that he's paid for. But other than that, Elder Ken like took care of Pastor Jerry the whole time, and like I said, it was fun to watch. Even I remember y'all at Drotsky's, just watching y'all at Drotsky's exploring all the different areas and stuff, and like I said, it was just fun to watch. So if you want to talk a little bit about the campsites and different things, if there's anything that stands out to you on that, and then we'll get in full into ministry.
Okay, at the Drotskys.
Hi, Zama.
Hi, Zama.
At the Drotskys camp, that was my favorite. We were up at the lodge where we could hook up with Wi-Fi and reconnect with home for a bit. And it was about a third of a mile walk. And so we were both up there doing that. And we were there maybe 10 minutes. And then the owner of the lodge came by and asked if we had a doctor in our group, you know, because they had an emergency there that they needed, an older, or I mean, a man had fallen, hurt his ankle or something like that, and they weren't sure if it was broken or just sprained or what it needed. So I mentioned that we had a nurse, and so then she arranged for her grandson to walk with me and Pastor Jerry all the way back to camp, and then she sent her husband over later with the car to bring him back. So on the way, we were walking fast, and her grandson had just got out of high school, and he was there for the summer to help out. And I felt like that even though we're walking fast, I have a great opportunity to share with him. So we're walking really fast, and I'm going through the script a little bit and sharing with him, and he's real receptive, and so I just keep going all the way through it. And he prays a prayer with me about the time we get back to camp, and Nurse Mallory gets to hop in the vehicle with Pastor Sean and go check things out back at the lodge to see how the patient's doing.
That's awesome. I hadn't even heard that story.
Anyway,
Did any of the other campsites stand out, or anything you think about any of the other campsites? I know Drotsky's was pretty much everyone's favorite, just because it was I don't even know how to explain it. It was just stunning. There was lemon trees, banana trees,
yes.
Passion fruit tree. There was just fruit trees. You're right on the Okavanga Delta. You have the hippos. You have the crocodiles. You have the restaurant that hung out over the water. Like, it was just a beautiful place. But some of the others were nice as well.
Yes. All of them were pretty good. They had hot water and
Sometimes.
and nice bathrooms. Oh, yeah, the one didn't have hot water unless you added wood to the fire under the hot water
Oh, the
heater.
donkey boiler. Yeah.
And I didn't realize that's what was out there, so I took a cold shower that night. I wanted to get it over with, and so it was cold, but it was fine. It was hot during the day, and so that was kind of a little different. But all the camps were good. I do remember the one we were under an acacia tree, which has those large needles on it.
Mhm.
And so the next day when we were out doing the ministry, I noticed I had a thorn in my flesh in my foot.
Oh no.
And I thought it was on the inside, so I took my shoes off a couple times and tried to look for something, couldn't find anything. Third time I looked on the sole of my foot, and it was going all the way up through the sole of my
wow.
foot and poking me from the bottom.
Wow.
So I pulled it out from the bottom. It was about an inch long, and then the rest of the day felt fine, but
Wow.
I literally had a thorn in my flesh for the first half hour of the ministry there, which was a little distracting, but no big deal. Yeah, and the other thing that was interesting for me was all the sand. I wasn't prepared for all the sand in Botswana and Namibia. It was like walking on the beach, literally, and that was kind of new for me.
Yeah, it made walking fun. We'll just put it that way.
Mhm.
So go ahead and throw it up. That's not even all of it.
No, that's
That's like maybe a third of it.
yeah, that's about a third.
I mean, that's about a third. I mean, literally. Do you have any pictures of the tents? Do you have one? Okay, yeah, send it
yeah,
to
do that
Jason.
one.
And if you have one of the tent of just what a tent looked like, because that was fun. I remember that last night. I walked over to hand him 2 of my now jeans and something else, and I said, "Pastor Jerry, I got something for you," and he realized it was me. Pastor Sean, is that you? Yeah. And I just poked my head in his tent, and his tent was full.
It was
full.
so full.
It was so full that's where you see that table. To where the table came out because we had to start putting stuff on the table because his tent was full. And these tents are probably, what would you say, Elder Ken, like 6 foot by 6 foot?
Yes.
And so his tent was 6 foot by 6 foot full of stuff. And he came with one backpack.
Yes.
So, but while we're there getting that, so talk about ministry in Mound, that when we walked out and we're going house to house in Mound, like what stood out to you and some of your encounters you had?
Was that the first one after
first
the
one.
school?
So yeah, we were at Audi Camp, which is where we stayed right by the toilets and everything.
Okay.
And then we walked out from there
Okay.
and we went into some of the houses. And were you in the group that ministered at the business center?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, good. Talk about that.
I was in Zama's group, and that was amazing for me to see how she organized a little church service. Basically, there was a business area with some offices, and there was a lady there who was like the spokesperson, and she spoke real good English. And so they started to bring the chairs out, and eventually I think we had a group of 30 people. And so I'm not sure who spoke to them. I think Zama did. That was real early on, so I was just kind of an observer, more or less. And kind of at the end of it then, someone come over and asked me to pray for these older ladies, and they both asked to be delivered of like snuff or something to that effect.
Like a chewing snuff.
And
yeah.
I was a little surprised at that, because usually over here in the States, the older ladies don't do snuff. At least not the ones I know.
Elder Barber doesn't choose snuff.
No. So that was kind of interesting. And then later on, we went through the community or the village, and I was still feeling a little bit nervous, trying to discover how best I could communicate with them, and so that was good. It was good to see Eden with the little Africans there. She acted like she was right at home, just playing in the dirt with them, and so that was very cool for me to see, and all these other bold witnesses. I wasn't feeling that bold on the first outing for sure, but I was learning a lot. One thing that kind of surprised me is after we left the school, where there were like 1,100 kids. As we were leaving there, for no apparent reason, I just started to weep when we left, like, the school ground. I don't know, just like
it was
out of me. I don't know.
It was overwhelming, like,
Yes.
because that was very early on in the trip.
Yes.
And you come around the corner, and then they just start lining up. Plus, to know the backstory of the headmaster, whenever Paul and Pastor Seise went to get permission, the headmaster was like, I was fasting and praying yesterday that someone would come tell these kids about Jesus. Then the assistant headmaster, without even knowing that the headmaster heard the conversation, was like, wait, what a minute, wait. I was fasting and praying yesterday that someone would come. And so when we knew that going in, and then once you see all those kids lined up, like, do y'all have that video? Anyone have that video? Is Clemmy watching? If you can have Clemmy send that video real quick, that would be amazing.
Yes.
But I don't know how to describe it. All of that whole situation, that whole thing was overwhelming in a good way, in a very good way. Just to watch Jose and Rosa and Pastor Lesejo, and then to watch all those kids' faces change and how engaged every kid was. I mean, it was just, the whole thing was just.
Yes, I've seen scenes like that in Kenya before with all the students, but we were there to feed those students and to give them things, but this was just a step up from that, and very moving.
So you talked about this a little bit on the trip, and you can get into as little or as much detail as you want to. And Pastor or Elder Barbara and I were talking about this a little bit about, and I'll just go ahead and share some of this, because I think this is important for people that aren't involved in missions to understand. There's a difference between short-term and long-term missions, and they have to work together, and at least to be fully effective. They don't have to work together. They can work separately and independently, but to be fully effective, there has to be some part of long-term missions and short-term missions. And in short-term, there's many different types of trips. You've got humanitarian aid trips, say after a natural disaster. Like when I was in Bible school, they sent a team down to Haiti after the earthquake. That's a humanitarian aid project. You have feedings, what they call overseas schemes. Feeding projects is what we would call them here in the States. You have construction projects, building projects. You have ones that are just going to churches or just going to orphanages. But then you have evangelism trips. And all of these things are necessary together. But and this is what Elder Barbara and I were talking about earlier, if you don't have the evangelism side to where you're leading people to the Lord, the Bible even tells us people can go to heaven with a full stomach. I mean, go to hell with a full stomach. Right. So if you don't have that evangelism part, it's completely different than everything else. And it's, I would say, the most entry-level necessary part of long-term missions is having those short-term evangelism trips. And you made a comment on the trip that, like, you've been on many trips, but being able to do this kind of evangelism and this kind of outreach was hitting you very differently than anything else on any of the other trips. So just kind of explain that thought process a little bit.
Yes, well, I think evangelism is a lot like public speaking, because it's probably the one thing that most people are the most not likely just to do. It's hard, it gets in your face, it puts you on the spot more than you want to be usually, and so it's more difficult, and you just have to rise up and do it. You have to decide to obey the Lord's command to be that evangelist in season and out of season. And for me, we've done some evangelism, like in El Salvador. We visited a village and went house to house, and then we had an evening meeting or a Sunday service or something to that effect. So we did some of it in El Salvador, and on an occasion when we were in Honduras with Pastor Sean, and we did some.
Yeah, we did it up in that mountain village, if I remember right.
Yes. We did go house to house there, and even at like the gas stations, you guys would get out and do spontaneous evangelism. So we've done some here and there, but but for the most part, we visit orphanages and preach in churches like in Kenya. And in Belgium, we did mostly construction, but we did some outreach as well. So it's a varied mix, but this one was the most evangelism I've ever done for sure on a missions trip, and it was a good challenge and very good experience and very rewarding, and yes, very good.
So that brings us to talk a little bit about Mahimba. Like I don't think I was ever on your team the main day ministry days. I think I tried to bounce around from team to team and watch from distances and keep eyes on a bunch of different people. But like on Mahimba, you were with probably Becca, Clemmy, and all of them, and Pastor Lisejo. Who all were you with in Mahimba?
And that's the village
The
by
real
the bridge.
small village, yes, by the elephant tusk bridge, the mammoth tusk bridge.
Yes. That was a good day as well. I learned a lot from Pastor Lisejo. He was an essential part of the trip. We did several group settings there with more than one people or more than one. And at the one, I noticed there was probably eight people that we were speaking to, and at one point the one lady got up and left, and I wasn't sure what happened, and later we found out she was not happy with the phone she saw come out and take a picture. So we learned to be careful about that and to photograph when it wasn't an obvious thing, and not to offend them in that way. So, and also in that group, later on there was a lady out washing her laundry in the front yard, and so I went and talked with her a little bit, and I think she actually spoke English fairly well. I was able to understand her, and so I tried not to just do the script, but to engage her as a friend to start with, and that seemed to be effective for her. And so eventually she did pray the prayer with me, and so that was encouraging. It was hard to balance having the script in your head and all the expectations of everybody of what to do and how to do it, it was hard to know how to be natural and to be yourself and just to enjoy the experience instead of trying to perform.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, no, I think that's important, is just like going and just letting the Lord work through you. So one of the things I've always told people on the trips we ran with Every Tribe Missions, because there were some years I think we ran 23 trips.
Wow.
And so like, especially for the leaders or people that had been on multiple that year, it was like, go into every trip with 100% expectation, but have zero expectations. So what that means is you go 100% knowing God's going to show up. You have zero doubt about that. And you know God's going to use you. You know you're going to see miracles. You know you're going to see salvations. But as far as the rest of the trip, have zero expectations. Because you don't know, like back then, you didn't know if you were going to get a shower for a week or two. You didn't know if it was going to rain. I remember one trip we were on in South Africa. It rained for like 4 days straight.
Wow. It
was just torrential downpour. And the guys still went out every day. So, I mean, just kind of having zero expectation as to what the dynamics of the trip are going to look like. Because I think, and you can probably talk about this a lot more than most people, because you've said you've been on like 19 trips in multiple different countries and multiple different types of trip, is if you almost go with a locked-in mindset of this is how each day is going to look, then you get frustrated. Because and when you get into foreign countries and on a mission trip, you can plan. I mean, you can ask these guys. We over-planned this trip down to the letter. But we also had so much flexibility every day. You can't be rigid in your mindset if you want to receive from the Lord, but also pour out from the Lord. So talk about a little bit about that.
Yes. hard to focus right now. So yes, it's hard to focus on what you need to be doing if you're thinking about yourself or your hang-ups or whatever else is going on in your life. So right now I lost. I guess I'm not focused right now. I've kind of forgot what you just.
Well, it's kind of a hard and deep thing. Ava, kind of maybe jump in a little bit. Kind of, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, yes, you go in with preconceived ideas, but you almost have to dump your preconceived ideas at your tent door every day.
Yeah. So, like, obviously, like, we had, like, the expectation, like, we're going to see souls saved, like, every single day that we were going to go out to ministry and to minister to people. But at the same time, like, we didn't know what kind of people we were going to encounter. We didn't know what houses we were going to see. Like, things like that, you kind of have to, like, get out of your head and be like, okay, like, I'm here to just, like, share Jesus with people and not really have, like, the mindset of, like, okay, this is what's going to happen and this is how it's going to happen and all of that. Like, you just have to, like, flow with the Lord and allow the Holy Spirit to, like, flow on the inside of you.
I mean, to the point, like, if you remember that day, we were all kind of frustrated when we tried to go to Chicago and we got shut down.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then we went, that's when we hopped over to Mahimbo. And then what was crazy about Mahimbo is probably, whenever you read the scripture, go to the uttermost parts of the world, that's Mahimbo. Like, it's, you go from Maun, which would probably be one of the bigger cities in Botswana after Gabs and Francistown. It's probably the third largest. But then you go to Chicago, which is like a tiny town compared to Maun. And then you go from there to Mahimbo, which without being there, and I don't know if we have any pictures of that, it's hard to understand how rural Mahimbo was, and having a different mindset from going from Maun to ministering on the side of the road to ministering in Mahimbo, like having to change your mindset all the time. And the way you ministered, because like you were saying, Elder Ken, like there's certain times you could use the script, there's certain times you could use the chunks of the script, and then there's other times where you just had to be led by the Holy Ghost and do what was in your spirit.
Right. Yeah, it was a challenge for sure. And then some of the other things we were instructed that that when you're praying for people to remove your hat and take off your sunglasses. And so some of those kind of things were suggested that we do. And so it was like a juggling match, trying to remember everything you were supposed to be doing and then be led by the Spirit at the same time. And you're there sweating, and you might be out in the full sun and not be under a shade tree. And so it was a lot to coordinate in our minds and to follow through with. And I was I've always wanted the Lord to like give me a word of wisdom ahead of time, or some, a dream of somebody that I would see the next day, or something like that, something that would be easy to spot or not to forget. But that didn't happen in that way. One night I shared this with the group. I had a dream that I didn't really want to have. It was an X-rated one of sorts, but and then the next day I was praying with this young man, and he was our interpreter, and he seemed a little distracted as he was explaining things to the other people in the group, and he just looked a little sad or somber. And so when we asked him what he needed for us to pray for him about, he told us he was having sex dreams and had problems with witchcraft. And so I prayed over that, and his face seemed to lighten up after that. And then it wasn't until later in the day that I remembered that I had one of those kind of dreams myself the night before, and I thought, well, maybe that was to help me to be ready to pray for him. But I didn't realize it at the moment. So, yeah.
And then talk about Kasani as well, with the last area where we went down the 3 streets. The teams went down the 3 streets.
Okay, that was the day I had the thorn in the flesh for a while in my foot, but that was a little distracting. But Pastor Jerry and I, we did a lot together that day. And the only time I saw him knock on a door was when there was this one young man that he had engaged outside, and then he ran in the house. So he went up and knocked on the door. But other than that, everybody was out and about, and they were always available, and it was easy to engage someone. And that young man was a little hesitant, but he came around eventually. Later on in the morning there, Ava and I there was this other man who was working by his car, which there weren't many cars in that neighborhood, just a very few. And we started to speak with him and found out he was an elder at the Apostolic Church in a nearby town. So that was encouraging to run into him. And then later on, we were down the street a ways, and he come running after us, asking if we had any extra Bibles that we could leave with him. And so I gave him the one I had with me, and he was thankful for that. And then later, after lunch, I think Ava and I were with Pastor Jerry at this other place, and there was this elderly lady sitting outside of her house. She was probably in her 80s or 90s, and her daughter was there, and Pastor Jerry was interacting with her a lot because she was I think she was taking care of the mom, who was the older lady that was sitting on the ground, and afterward Pastor Jerry said that the mother was complaining to him that the daughter wasn't taking very good care of her. So, and I don't think he said this in front of the daughter, but and it was interesting to hear the whole situation after the fact. And so she was lame in her feet, I believe, and I don't think she had very good hearing. So Ava prayed for her feet, if I remember right, and I prayed for her hearing. And I don't remember any change per se. And then we went to pray for somebody else nearby. And then when we walked back through, I noticed the lady wasn't sitting there anymore. She had been, either she got up and walked and moved to her mallet, or her daughter lifted her up and took her in there. And when we were praying for her initially, she was making a motion with her hand toward her body, and we didn't know what she was pointing to or why. And after she was moved, it was evident to both of us that while she was sitting there, she needed to be moved to the bathroom, but her daughter didn't move her. So I don't know, how would you feel if you're sitting in your front porch and you're an invalid, and some American missionaries show up and you have to go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
And your daughter doesn't pick you up and move you because of the whole situation. Anyway, it was a little uncomfortable, I'm sure, for her as well as for us when we walked by later. But anyway, you just never know what kind of situation
That's true.
you're going to get into. And I noticed in that area that they did have running water by the streets on little spigots, and some outhouses, but I'm pretty sure that the daughter had to move her mom back and forth to the outhouse every time she needed to go to the
Wow.
bathroom. Yeah. So you can imagine what kind of a life her daughter had. And so the mom probably was complaining, she's not moving me enough or fast enough or something. Anyway.
Well, I think Jason has some of the pictures we were talking about. Jason, just throw one up and we'll chat through each one. So yeah, that's basically what the tents looked like. Not basically, that's what they look like. That's actually one of the tents. So that's what they were. Yeah, that's the van of all of Pastor Jerry's stuff. And you can't tell, that gray bag on the bottom could hold a body. It's a huge bag. And there were multiple other bags that you can't see. That's probably a good 4 to 5 foot deep of stuff, about 4 foot tall. So he had a lot of stuff. What else do you have? Oh, this is the video of the school. Is there any audio to it or no? Yeah, put the audio on. Hey, there's Elder Ken right there. So you can see how many kids there are. It was probably 60, 70 yards wide full of just kids. That's that moment. He just walked out weeping because it was overwhelming. It was just an overwhelming encounter right there with everyone. This is another one of the schools. That's that one. So that's another one of the schools. That was pretty cool. Did I send you any more pictures, or is that what you got? Okay, cool. So yeah, that kind of gives some context. How many kids were there? In that one school, it was 1,100. In another school, it was about 1,000. And then another school about, how many was it? 800? And then the school where you were at was like 60, 70 kids. So you couldn't hear me when, because of the audio. So basically what I was saying is there was at that school where you saw the first video, there were about 1,100 kids, and it was about 60, 70 yards wide, just packed full of kids. And you couldn't see how many it was because they were literally like standing on top of each other. Yeah. And just, they were all packed in there really tight. And then the second video was another school on one of the last days that Becca and Clemmy ministered at, that there were like, how many, do you remember how many? 800 something, 400, something like that, 600 something. There were still a lot of kids. And then there was another school at the same time as that one where there were over 1,000 kids. Then there was a school where Ava, we talked about earlier this morning, where Ava, hello Eden, where Ava ministered and there was about 70 kids. But I definitely agree with Elder Ken that first school that we hit, like when you walked out, it was just like this, wow. Yeah. Like you're almost at a loss for words. Because that's when you realize, like I had the Lord tell me in Bible school, you'll see generations changed in a day. And I was, for a long season, I was perplexed of what that would mean. But we literally saw that in multiple places, to where, like, in Mahimbo, that school where you ministered, that was the only school there. Yeah. So you're literally affecting every kid from probably 8 and under in that whole village. So you're affecting a generation. In the school that Elder Ken was talking about, 1,100 kids in Mound, you're probably affecting half of the school-aged kids in that whole town in 30 minutes. And then in Kasani, where you're affecting every kid from, that was probably 5 to 15 in 30 minutes. You're changing the whole dynamic of a village, a whole dynamic of a town within a short period of time. So to see it right before your eyes and to feel the presence of God and to see these kids' faces change and all, it is very overwhelming. And so when you said that, I 100% agreed with you. That was an overwhelming experience and encounter. So, anything else you want to wrap up with, Elder Ken? Any other experiences or encounters on the trip that you want to tell?
I would just encourage everyone to go on a mission trip at least once. Yep. No matter what kind it is. It's a great learning experience, and it helps you to see how other people live and how they worship, and it's preparation for heaven when they'll be all around you anyway, from every tribe and every tongue. So if you have the chance, just get a foretaste now.
Amen. Ava, you have anything since you're back on?
No, I don't think so.
No? Okay. All right. Well, we are out of time again. I know that's, you could probably sit here and listen to these stories over and over. And I think the more times we have pictures, it makes it even easier to tell the stories of what happened and correlate them. So maybe we'll try to, who's on next week? Y'all are on next week? Maybe we'll try to have some pictures ready and do that and put them up while we're talking. So other than that, we love you guys. Hey, Paul. Good to see Mom and Pa are on. Zama's on. Awesome. Aren't y'all supposed to be asleep right now? It's like 11 o'clock at night, isn't it? It's 10 o'clock at night. So, all right. We love you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time.